Every once in a while, there comes a moment that changes how we see everything. Not because the facts are new, but because the perspective is. We spend so much of our lives moving fast, chasing goals, meeting deadlines, yet rarely do we stop to ask, why am I really doing this? What I want to share with you today isn't just another talk. It's an invitation. An invitation to pause, to reflect, and to see the world and yourself with fresh eyes. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons don't take years to learn. They can be captured in just 10 minutes. And if you lean in, if you truly listen, these 10 minutes may be the most eye-opening of your life. When we think about what drives us, most of us instinctively start with the what. We talk about what we do for a living, what goals we want to achieve, what possessions we want to have, or what milestones we're chasing. Some people go a little deeper and focus on the how. They explain how they plan to accomplish their ambitions, how they will stand out, how they will reach success faster or smarter than others. But the truth is, those layers, what and how, are not the ones that truly move people. They are not the ones that inspire action, resilience, or loyalty. The most powerful question we can ever ask is why. Why do we do what we do? Why does it matter? Why do we wake up each morning and decide to step into the challenges of the day? It is this clarity of why that gives meaning to everything else. Without it, even the greatest accomplishments feel hollow. Think about people who have made the deepest impact on history. They weren't remembered because of what they did alone, or even just how they did it. They were remembered because they started with why. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't stand on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial and say, "I have a plan." He said, "I have a dream." His words touched hearts because he spoke to a deeper purpose, a why that transcended the immediate struggles of his time. Steve Jobs didn't just talk about what computers could do. He talked about challenging the status quo, about empowering individuals to think differently. Their why was clear, and it guided their every decision, every innovation, every movement they led. Now contrast this with many of us who live life on autopilot. We graduate, we get jobs, we chase promotions, we buy things, we tick boxes. But when asked why we're doing it all, often the answers feel shallow, because everyone else does, because I'm supposed to, or because that's success. And when we don't have a clear why, setbacks feel heavier, challenges feel unbearable, and success, even when we achieve it, feels strangely unfulfilling. But when we know our why, obstacles become part of the journey. And victories feel richer, because they are connected to something greater than ourselves. The beautiful part about starting with why is that it doesn't need to be grand or world-changing. It just needs to be authentic. Your why could be to create a safe and loving family. It could be to inspire others to believe in themselves. It could be to bring beauty into the world through art, or to heal others through medicine, or to spark joy through teaching. The scale doesn't matter. What matters is that it gives direction to your actions, meaning to your struggles, and energy to your efforts. When we have clarity of why, our decisions become simpler. We stop comparing ourselves endlessly to others because our path isn't theirs. We measure progress against our purpose, not against someone else's scoreboard. That is freeing. It helps us focus on what really matters, and it protects us from the noise and distractions that so easily consume us. People are drawn to us not because of the products we sell or the achievements we list, but because of the belief that radiates through us. Purpose attracts. Meaning inspires. Why unites. And perhaps the most eye-opening truth is this: you already have a why. It's not something you invent, it's something you uncover. It's been there all along, waiting for you to recognize it and live by it. When you do, your life gains coherence, your work gains depth, and your relationships gain authenticity. Perspective is one of the most underestimated forces shaping our lives. Two people can face the exact same circumstance, yet experience it in completely different ways, not because the facts are different, but because their lens is. Imagine standing in the rain. One person sees inconvenience, frustration, and discomfort. Another sees beauty, refreshment, and a reminder of nature's rhythm. The rain hasn't changed, only the perspective has. And that small difference changes everything. From how we feel, to how we act, to what we carry forward from the moment. Our reality is less about what happens to us and more about the meaning we assign to it. This is why perspective can often be the difference between resilience and defeat. Consider someone who loses a job. Through one lens, it looks like failure, rejection, or the end of stability. Through another, it looks like an opening, a chance to reinvent, or an opportunity to pursue something that had long been postponed. The same event, the same facts, but two entirely different lives unfolding depending on the story being told. When we begin to see challenges not only as obstacles but as teachers, setbacks not only as endings but as redirections, our lives expand in ways we could never have planned. History is full of examples of people whose perspectives turned limitations into power. Helen Keller, blind and deaf, could have seen only darkness and silence. Instead, she saw the possibility of using her life as a beacon for others. Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, could have seen bitterness and loss. Instead, he saw a chance to cultivate patience, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of reconciliation. Their circumstances were extreme, but their perspectives were transformative. They prove that reality itself is filtered through the lens we choose to look through, and that lens can either limit us or liberate us. The truth is, perspective is not something that happens automatically. Left unchecked, the human mind often defaults to fear, scarcity, and comparison. It fixates on what's missing, what's wrong, or what might go badly. But perspective can be trained. Gratitude is one of the simplest ways to shift our lens. When we consciously look for what's present rather than what's absent, we see abundance where we once saw lack. Another tool is curiosity. Instead of judging an experience as bad, right away curiosity allows us to ask, what can I learn here? How might this serve me later? Even a painful moment can become valuable when viewed through the eyes of curiosity. There is also something profoundly liberating about realizing that we cannot always control circumstances, but we can always influence perspective. It means we are not powerless even in the hardest seasons of life. It means we can choose the lens that empowers us instead of the one that diminishes us. This choice doesn't magically remove difficulty, but it changes how difficulty shapes us. Instead of breaking us, it builds us. Instead of making us bitter, it makes us wiser. And over time, these choices compound, forming a mindset that sees possibility where others see dead ends. What makes perspective so eye-opening is its ripple effect. When you shift your lens, you don't just change your inner world, you change how you show up for others. A leader who sees challenges as opportunities inspires their team to do the same. A parent who frames struggles as lessons raises children who are resilient. A friend who sees light, even in dark times, becomes a source of strength to those around them. Perspective doesn't stay private. It spreads, and in spreading, it transforms entire environments. This is why learning to shift perspective is one of the most powerful tools we can ever develop. It allows us to take ownership of our experience, to reclaim control in moments where control seems lost, and to build a life that isn't dictated by circumstance, but by choice. Small shifts in mindset have the power to create massive changes in life, often in ways we don't immediately recognize. We tend to believe transformation comes from big leaps, monumental achievements, or life-altering events, but more often than not, it begins with a subtle shift in the way we think. A single new perspective, a redefined belief, or a fresh interpretation of an old story can redirect the entire course of our journey. It's like adjusting a compass by just a single degree. At first, it feels insignificant, but over time, that 1 degree difference leads us to an entirely different destination. Think about the difference between someone who approaches life with a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, I am what I am, and that's it. A growth mindset says, I am what I am today, but I can learn, improve, and expand. That small mental shift doesn't just change how you think about yourself. It changes how you respond to challenges, how you handle criticism, how you pursue opportunities. Instead of being paralyzed by failure, a growth mindset sees it as feedback, as information for improvement. And that one change multiplies into progress, resilience, and long-term success. Another example is how we interpret stress. Stress in itself is not inherently destructive. Physiologically, stress is energy. It's our body preparing us to meet a challenge. The mindset we bring to stress determines whether it breaks us or builds us. If we see stress as harmful, we shrink under its weight. If we see stress as energy to be harnessed, it becomes fuel for performance and growth. This is a small but profound mental shift, one that has been shown to even change health outcomes and longevity. These subtle shifts are everywhere in daily life. Consider the way we look at setbacks. One mindset says, this is the end of the road. Another says, this is the beginning of a new path. One says, I failed. The other says, I learned. The difference between those two interpretations doesn't just shape how we feel in the moment. It shapes the trajectory of what happens next. Over time, the accumulation of those small mindset choices builds a life defined either by limitation or by possibility. We often underestimate how much of our experience is constructed not by external events, but by the meaning we give them. The brain is constantly filtering, interpreting, and assigning significance. By becoming intentional about those interpretations, by pausing to reframe even slightly, we gain the ability to transform frustration into patience, fear into courage, and uncertainty into curiosity. It doesn't require reinventing everything overnight. It requires a willingness to change the story we tell ourselves in small, consistent ways. The beauty of small mindset shifts is that they are accessible to everyone. You don't need wealth, status, or privilege to adjust the way you think. You need awareness, choice, and the courage to practice. And while the shifts may feel invisible at first, their compound effect is undeniable. Day by day, they strengthen habits, build resilience, and open doors that once seemed closed. What feels like a small decision today can one day be the reason you're standing in a place you never thought possible. When we look back at our lives, it's rarely one single moment that defines us. It's the accumulation of hundreds of small choices, each influenced by the mindset we carried. And the most eye-opening realization is that those small shifts are available to us right now, in every situation, in every conversation, in every challenge we face. Connection is one of the deepest human needs, yet it is also one of the most overlooked in a world that often glorifies individual achievement. We are conditioned from an early age to chase success, to accumulate accomplishments, to build a resume that proves our worth. And while achievement is not wrong, what we often discover, sometimes painfully, is that achievement without connection feels empty. The awards on the shelf, the promotions at work, the milestones reached mean little if they are not shared, if they do not serve a purpose greater than ourselves, if they do not touch the lives of others. Connection is what gives achievement its meaning. When we reflect on the moments that stand out most in our lives, they are rarely solitary victories. They are the times when we felt seen, heard, and valued by someone else. It's the teacher who believed in us when we doubted ourselves. It's the friend who sat with us in silence during pain. It's the family member who celebrated our smallest wins as if they were monumental. Those moments stay with us not because of what was accomplished, but because of how deeply we felt connected. That is the real currency of a fulfilled life. Connection is not only emotional, it is biological. Our brains are wired for it. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, is released when we experience trust, empathy, and genuine connection. This means that meaningful relationships don't just feel good, They actually strengthen our mental and physical health. People with strong connections live longer, recover faster from illness, and experience lower levels of stress. In contrast, loneliness has been shown to be as damaging to health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. This isn't just about happiness, it's about survival. We are literally built to connect. The paradox is that in a hyper-connected digital world, true human connection has become more fragile. Social media gives the illusion of closeness while often leaving us more isolated. We measure connection in likes and followers instead of in depth and authenticity. But connection cannot be manufactured by numbers. It is cultivated through presence, listening, vulnerability, and empathy. To connect is to care. To connect is to pause long enough to truly see the person in front of us. It is less about saying the right thing and more about being willing to be real. Connection also changes the way we experience success. Alone, success can feel fleeting. Together, it feels profound. A leader who achieves great results but loses the trust of their people is not remembered fondly. A parent who provides every material need but neglects emotional presence leaves a void that no achievement can fill. On the other hand, someone who might not achieve fame or wealth, but who consistently invests in people, builds bridges, and nurtures relationships leaves behind a legacy that endures long after they are gone. Connection outlives achievement. There is a powerful shift that happens when we begin to prioritize people over trophies. We start to measure our days not by how much we got done, but by how deeply we touched others. Success then becomes less about climbing the ladder and more about lifting others as we climb. It becomes less about being the best in the room and more about making the room better because we were in it. That kind of success is contagious. It multiplies. It inspires. It lasts. At the end of our lives, when we look back, it will not be the titles or possessions that define our story. It will be the relationships, the moments of shared laughter, the times we stood by each other in hardship, and the ways we showed up with love and authenticity. Connection is not just valuable, it is essential to a life well lived. The growth begins the moment comfort ends, and while the idea sounds simple, living it is far more challenging. Comfort is safe, familiar, predictable. It shields us from fear, from uncertainty, from risk. But it also shields us from possibility. Nothing new is born in comfort. No great discoveries, no innovations, no deep self-awareness have ever come from staying where everything feels easy. Growth demands stepping beyond that line of safety and embracing the unknown, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels terrifying. Think about the first time a child learns to walk. The comfort zone is crawling, safe, stable, familiar. But growth comes only when they risk falling, wobbling, and standing on unsteady legs. Every step forward requires the willingness to stumble. The same is true for all of us. To grow in our careers, in our relationships, in our character, we must risk leaving behind the stability of what we know in exchange for the possibility of what we could become. Discomfort is not a sign we are on the wrong path. More often, it is a sign we are on the right one. History proves this over and over. Every innovator who broke ground, every leader who changed the world, every ordinary person who achieved extraordinary things did so by stepping into discomfort. The Wright brothers had no guarantee their fragile invention would ever fly, but they pushed past ridicule and risk because growth required it. Rosa Parks, by refusing to give up her seat, endured discomfort that became the catalyst for an entire movement. These moments were not born from staying safe, they were born from courageously stepping outside of it. But growth is not only about world-changing acts. It is also about the small choices we make daily to challenge ourselves. It's speaking up in a meeting when staying silent would be easier. It's having the difficult conversation rather than avoiding it. It's choosing to learn a new skill instead of staying stagnant in familiarity. Each time we choose discomfort in the service of growth, we expand the edges of who we are. Slowly, our comfort zone grows larger, and with it, our capacity for resilience, adaptability, and courage. What makes leaving comfort so difficult is the fear of failure. Yet failure, too, is a teacher of growth. When we step beyond the familiar, failure is inevitable at some point. But it is through failure that we learn our limits, discover our strengths, and build the resilience that success requires. The discomfort of failure is not a verdict against us. It is a stepping stone toward wisdom. The more we lean into that discomfort, the more we build a life defined not by avoidance but by growth. There is also an emotional discomfort in vulnerability, and yet it is in vulnerability that the deepest growth happens. To admit we don't know, to ask for help, to share our fears and dreams, to let others see us fully. This is uncomfortable, but it is the birthplace of stronger connections and authentic living. Without stepping into the discomfort of vulnerability, relationships remain shallow, and personal growth is stunted. The paradox is that what feels uncomfortable in the moment often becomes the source of our greatest pride later. Looking back, we rarely feel proud of the times we played it safe. We feel proud of the risks we took, the fears we faced, the discomfort we embraced, because those were the moments we grew. And as we continue to step into discomfort, growth compounds. We evolve into someone braver, wiser, and stronger than we once thought possible. Life offers us countless invitations to grow, but they almost always come disguised as discomfort. The question is whether we will retreat to what is familiar or lean into what is challenging. The answer to that question determines not just the size of our achievements, but the depth of our lives. Time is the most precious currency we will ever spend, yet it is also the one we are most careless with. Money can be earned back, possessions can be replaced, opportunities can reappear, but time only moves in one direction. Every second that passes is gone forever, and yet we often treat it as if it were limitless. We waste hours scrolling, waiting, procrastinating, chasing things that don't matter, forgetting that what we give our time to, we give our life to. The most eye-opening realization is that how we spend our time is how we build our legacy. What makes time so valuable is its fairness. No matter who we are, where we come from, or what resources we have, every single one of us gets the same 24 hours in a day. The difference between people is not the amount of time they have, but the way they choose to use it. Some people invest their time into relationships, growth, and purpose, while others spend it on distractions, comfort, and avoidance. Over days, the difference seems small. Over years, the difference becomes life-changing. If we think of time as currency, the question becomes, what are we buying with it? Some people spend their time buying status, others buy possessions, and some buy memories, growth, and impact. When we reach the end of our lives, the receipts of our time will not be in our bank accounts or on our walls, but in the lives we touched, the lessons we learned, and the moments we created. That is why the way we allocate our time matters more than anything else. The tragedy is that most of us only realize the value of time when it begins to run out. People on their deathbeds rarely regret not making more money or climbing higher on the ladder of success. They regret the time they didn't spend with the people they loved. They regret the dreams they postponed until later, only to find later never came. They regret the chances they didn't take because they assumed there would always be more time. The truth is, we don't get to control the length of our lives, but we do get to control the depth. Being intentional with time doesn't mean filling every minute with productivity. It means filling it with meaning. Rest, play, connection, reflection. These are not wastes of time. They are investments when chosen with purpose. What wastes time is unconscious living, hours spent on autopilot, days that blur together without purpose, routines that keep us busy but not fulfilled. The difference lies in awareness. When we treat time as the non-renewable resource it is, we begin to prioritize differently. We say yes with more conviction and no with more courage. We choose presence over distraction. We give our best hours to the people and pursuits that matter most. The most powerful part about valuing time is how it changes our relationships. When we give someone our time, we are giving them a piece of our life we can never get back. That is why the gift of presence is so profound. Listening fully, being there without distractions, sharing moments without rushing. These are acts of love measured not in words, but in minutes and hours. People may forget what we said or did, but they will never forget how we chose to spend our time with them. And perhaps the greatest shift comes when we realize that valuing time is not about squeezing more into our days, but about aligning our days with our purpose. When our use of time reflects our values, life feels coherent, meaningful, and rich no matter how many years we have. The clock is always ticking, but instead of fearing its sound, we can let it remind us of the urgency of living fully. Because in the end, our time is our life, and how we choose to spend it is the story we will leave behind.